That didn't work out. Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Highly Taken Podcast, Eclipse Edition. I am David, coming at you from Tallahassee, Florida.
Dylan, coming at you from the moon.
How's the moon over there, Dylan? I can't really see it right now.
Yeah, I blocked the sun.
You blocked the sun. Dylan for 2023 NBA Defensive Player of the Year, can block the actual sun.
Yep.
But I guess, Dylan, you're from the, so you went, how did you get from this? How did you get to the moon from Des Moines, Iowa?
Elon Musk.
Just like hopped on a rocket, went to the moon, blocked the sun.
I held on to the side of the rocket.
Oh, so you kind of like rode the rocket.
Yeah, I held my breath.
Are you still holding your breath?
No. Luckily, I found a Tesla attached to the rocket, so I just took it onto the moon.
That's great. Well, I'm glad the moon's doing well for you. Hopefully you'll come back down to Earth at some point. But I guess we have some games to talk about today. The biggest one going to be the national championship game. I believe that's today, right? It's not on Tuesday, is it? Yeah, a national championship. Today, yeah. We have Purdue versus UConn. Dylan, how are you feeling about this game?
I think UConn's going to go back to back. They are riding so much momentum. I don't think that Purdue is going to be able to beat them. I think UConn's going to go back to back, get their second national title in a row.
Yeah, and I think I've said it multiple times, they just have done it with ease throughout the entire tournament. They have really not played any games I would consider close games. They've all been pretty decisive wins. They won by 14 in the Final Four. I said it was going to be a 15-point win. I was close, but it was 14 points. It was a good game. UConn is just such a good team. It's really well coached as well. And yeah, I'm going to have to agree now. I keep going against Purdue, and that's just because, I just feel like at some point they can't rely on Edey so much, and that's what they have been doing. Purdue, I wouldn't say got lucky. I will say that NC State did not play that well. I mean, they only scored, 53 points that game. No one was really shooting the ball well for that NC State team, and then they obviously fell short because of that. But I think you're right. I think UConn's going to go back-to-back here. I think it's going to be the first team to go back-to-back since the 2006-2007 Florida Gators basketball teams, the ones that have like Joakim Noah and Corey Brewer on it. So, and Al Horford, Philadelphia Sixers legend Al Horford. But yeah, it's going to be a good game. Do you have any stat predictions, anything, and a margin of victory?
I think that UConn's going to win it. I don't think they're going to dominate like they have been. I think they'll win by at least 7. But I think it'll be at like a comfortable deficit for UConn. I think they'll consistently be up by around 9 or 10 throughout most of this game. And I think near the end is when you're going to see Purdue just make a couple of baskets, but it's not going to be enough.
Yeah, and I'm going to say my prediction would be like, let's go 77-71 UConn. I think that's where it's going to be around there. I'd say like a 6-point win there seems like a good margin of victory. Nothing against Purdue. Now Purdue wins, good on them. I'm personally not going for Purdue just because I'm not one of those people who like to go for people in the same conference. I think that's kind of weird. But hey, I mean, at this point, either team wins. It's a good story for each one. Purdue gets its first championship. IU fans just hope that doesn't happen. If you're an IU fan, you're going to get some trash talk to you until IU can actually make it, let alone to the championship, to the NCAA tourney at this point. But it should be a good game. It should be a very good game. And another good game that was played yesterday, I guess we can talk about, would be the NCAA women's game. South Carolina, they rolled through the tournaments and they rolled through yesterday. Caitlin Clark in Iowa, winning by, I believe, 11 points was the final. They won by 11 points. It was like 87 to like 76, I believe, the final score.
Yeah.
And any thoughts on the game there that happened?
Yeah, I think that Caitlin Clark came out hot. making baskets, put Iowa up earlier on first quarter towards the end of the first half, but South Carolina just went on I believe 9-2 run to end the half, ended up going up by 7. Um, hey, you got to give them props. South Carolina, uh, they took one to the jaw, but they didn't let it stagger them. Came back strong in the second half and finished everything up. Perfect season.
Mm.
Not really heard of in college basketball, but I'll tell you what, that South Carolina team, scary team. You just got to hope that they can keep some of their players for next year.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's all year. I don't think there's ever really a game. I think only maybe there's one game where they won in a buzzer beater or something like that, but they really were not being contested. I feel like the entire year. I feel like they were rolling teams every year, and like even coming into the tournament, like I was like, there's I don't think there's any way the South Carolina team loses. They just were too good, and coming down to yesterday, they have a better team. You get 38 bench points against 0 bench points for Iowa. I mean, even there, the bench for Iowa. They only play 2 guys on the bench that came in, or 2 girls who came into the game, and they took a combined 3 shots the entire time. Meanwhile, you have people over on, the South Carolina side who are playing less minutes, who are on the bench, but have like 18, 19 points. They're coming off the bench and scoring a lot. So, I mean, it's
Yeah,
just the team was good. South Carolina team is the best team in the nation, obviously proven that. And Caitlin Clark is the best player in the nation. It's just around her, not that much. They were outsized. They just kept getting outboarded the entire game. And if you're missing shots and you're not getting the rebounds on it, then or if the other team's missing shots, but they're getting the rebounds on it, then
yeah,
obviously that's how it's going to play out. And so the better team won. What we'll say is, the coach, South Carolina's coach, mentioned it. Caitlin Clark did a lot for the game of college basketball for women's side. Her, Angel Reese, definitely. Obviously you have people like Sue Bird who were really good, but I feel like these are the 2 people who really put the women's college basketball in the limelight. It made it must-watch TV. I mean, the LSU Iowa game was the most watched women's game of all time with 12.3 million people. 12.3 million people sat down and watched the college women's game because of the names. So it's going to be very interesting to see how both of them do at the next level. I fully expect Caitlin Clark to honestly be the WNBA version of Stephen Curry. I know we already have Sabrina Ionescu, whatever her name is, but I feel like Caitlin Clark is a step above that, and I feel like she'll probably end up changing the game up there for the better.
yeah. I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, not much else in the sports world. I mean, we already talked about the Diggs. Did we talk about the Diggs trade? Did that happen after the episode? No, we talked about the Diggs
Uh,
trade.
talk about the Diggs trade. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was the title of the last episode. Um, I guess baseball wise, I guess what I can bring up baseball wise here, it's going to be the amount of injuries that have been happening now with pitchers. A lot of pitchers have been going season-ending injuries, and people are starting to point to the pitch
Pitch
clock
clock.
being the reason why people having to rush their motions, rush into pitching. Do you truly think this is the real reason for the arm injuries, or what do you think the actual reason for the increase of arm injuries is?
So, my personal opinion, I do believe that the pitch clock is an aspect to why these injuries are happening. You look at the amount of injuries that pitchers used to have, the amount of season-ending injuries that pitchers had, and when they had time to process, get into their groove when pitching, not having to worry about the time clock, less injuries, and it's because they have more time after, like, because you got to think when these guys are pitching, it's not like they're barely pitching; they're whipping their arms, throwing at velocities of mid to high 90s now. Um, when they don't get enough time to kind of recuperate, because a lot of pitchers, what they like to do is they like to shake their arm out a little bit, loosen it up before the next pitch. With the time clock, they don't get enough time to do what they used to. And I think the amount of pitches that they're having to do at a constant speed is going to wind up causing more injuries. So yeah, I think pitching clock is a big reason.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly can see that aspect of it. I just think the big reason is going to be the amount of velocity guys are throwing out nowadays. I mean, you don't see a lot of precision pitching anymore. It feels like anybody who
Mhm.
comes in has to have like a 98 mile per hour fastball. They have to have like a 91 mile per hour sweeping slider. You're putting your arms in different slots, you're flipping your wrists, you're doing a lot of things to your elbow that your elbow's not really supposed to be doing going that fast, and guys are getting stronger and they're getting bigger and their arms are going faster and their elbows just can't take that. I mean, we have, Bryce Harper got injured, the same injury being an outfielder. And so I mean, you got to wonder how much of this is also just people are getting stronger, they're throwing harder, and that's the reason why. I mean, you look at all these guys who have
Yeah.
these injuries, have like a sweeping slider, have a breaking pitch that they pitch a lot, and that does some damage on the elbow, on the arm when you're throwing up in the upper 90s and into the 100s. Um, Now, also, I feel like maybe the mechanics nowadays are different because I say that, but you have people like Nolan Ryan who went out there and pitched that exact same way. Of course, I don't think he was throwing a bunch of breaking balls. I think he was throwing a bunch of fastballs, a bunch of two seams, different pitches like that. So maybe that is the difference. But it's just that high velocity. I just feel like could
Yeah.
be the reason
Well,
why. But also, like you said, they're not getting time to recoup from the pitch clock.
yeah. Well, like the other thing, you look at velocity, you look at guys like Aroldis Chapman. Aroldis Chapman, fastest pitcher in the world, and he threw it. He threw an off speed, threw a slider, high 80s, low 90s, and he's been fine. I mean, you could attribute it to him just being a closer and the amount of pitches he has to do. That's a big reason why his
Hmm.
career has lasted a long time. But you look, it's mostly starters now getting hurt, and it's because of the number of pitches that um, these managers expect them to pitch. And it was fine when they had time to kind of like settle down, loosen up, but they're, like I said, constantly going pitch after pitch after pitch with not much rest.
Yeah, and I know they want to implement this pitch clock rule so games will be faster and people want to watch baseball more. But no one's going to want to watch baseball more when their favorite pitcher is hurt or the top two pitchers are hurt because they can't throw for the rest of the season. I mean, I'm a Phillies fan, right? Strider, if not one of the best pitchers in the entire MLB, and we lose him for a season, maybe a season and a half, depending on how bad this injury actually is. And that's a big blow. I mean, he is. I mean, you have a guy who won Cy Young last year. I'm pretty sure for the NL side, and now you lose him for the entire year. That's a big blow.
Yeah.
I mean, the Braves are a good team, and pitching is one of the reason why. And so it's going to be interesting. How do you think they should work around this? Like, what do you think the number one thing they should try doing to kind of counteract this?
So I know one of the biggest reasons why people wanted the pitch clock was because of how long the games were lasting, stuff like that. Um, I don't think I think you can get rid of the pitch clock, but I feel like I think you should limit amount the time for batters to get in there. I know that's also the thing with the pitch clock. A batter has a certain amount of time. You should keep that. That way you don't have batters constantly just calling time, backing up, stuff like that. Give them a certain amount of time to get into the batter's box before um, they get a strike call or something like that. Because when you do the pitch clock, you're punishing these pitchers.
Hmm. And no, and that's interesting too. Like, and I kind of agree with that there. I feel like a lot of the time it wasn't the pitcher the reason why the games were going slow is because the batters would be going slow. The batters had this routine. They would step out of the box. They would they like undo their gloves. They would undo their like arm guards or knee guards or shin guards, all that stuff, and go through their routine before stepping back in the box. That's what really did slow down the game. It wasn't the pitchers pitching, it was just the batters. And I would agree that, maybe it should just be a batter's box thing. That the batter has to be ready because the pitchers will throw when the batters are ready. Like I don't think that's an issue. I mean, you have guys like Scherzer who like the quick pitch. I mean, that's a thing. And it's this the batters were not liking it. So I mean, there's something that has to be done just because I just don't want to see a bunch of people getting injured because they're forcing their arms. They're going to have to go faster than they normally are used to. But it'll be interesting to see what baseball does. I don't know if they do anything, truthfully. I don't know what, because at this point, they're like, oh, yeah, the pitch clock works. People are watching it. but I just don't think they'll do anything.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially when you have it's important with these pitchers, like you said, Strider being one. You're losing a bunch of big name guys on big teams, big contending teams, and now you're wondering like, is MLB gonna change anything up, or are they gonna be like, listen, it's unfortunate, but we like how it is right now, and they just don't care.
Yeah. I mean, they, as I said, at this point, they probably just don't care, and I think that's what you're going to see. They're like, "Hey, look, like we'll have to risk it if they don't want to get hurt, then pitch differently." I guess they don't want the game to start slowing back down again. Um,
It could
and
be a
which,
thing where now like relievers are going to be used even more. You maybe we'll see starting pitchers only going 6 innings as opposed to going like 7 or 8. Maybe managers will start pulling them earlier and using more relievers.
yeah, I mean, we already kind of see that with like the Phillies will do that. They'll sit there and they'll throw a guy like 6 innings and then pull him immediately, and then the bullpen will come in and give up like 5 runs. But
Yeah,
oh, man, my toe itch so much. I was working on Brooklyn's car yesterday, stepped in an ant pile, and I got bit so bad. My toes are
I
just
got.
so itchy.
I really got to pee.
Is there anything? I feel like there's not a lot of
NBA.
NBA. What you got NBA wise?
So the thing I'm looking at right now, I know we talked about it a little bit on Friday. The Sixers right now won last night, double overtime thriller without Embiid. Now, they didn't do much without Embiid during the regular season, but still knowing that he's back, I think is putting more of a drive into these players. You look at Maxi with a 52-point night, but it wasn't just the fact that he had 52 points. Maxi was also the reason that they won that game, took them into overtime with a last second layup.
Mhm.
Um, and you can't. I'm not going to take anything away from the Spurs. Wimby had 33 points, played a heck of a game. But the Sixers, 52 from Maxi, 26 from Oubre. They're looking good. Hopefully, they have a game against the Pistons tonight. They win that. Hoping that the Pacers lose. They may make a push out of this play-in bracket. And you got to think the fact that they won without Embiid makes you think like, hey, they know that certain teams Embiid can rest before the playoffs if they're really wanting to make a push.
Yeah, I mean, and then that was a big thing. I was upset about it. Like, I understand why. You set them against the worst team in the Western Conference right now. Spurs have the worst record in the West. And so, like, yeah, you set them in a back to back against the worst team because you were like, hopefully the guys can get the win done. And, when they were down by like 6 points with like 2 minutes left, I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, we're about to lose this game. And Miami had lost. So we gotten back on Miami. I believe we're either tied or we're one or half a game up on Miami now and with the 7th seed. And so now we're a game back of the Pacers now.
Yes.
They're a game back of the Pacers, that 6th seed. The Pacers, they don't have a hard schedule, but they don't have an easy schedule. I mean, I believe they play the Mavericks. The Mavericks aren't going to be a hard team. Mavericks are also playing for seeding right now. Um, so
Yeah.
I mean, and it could be, I mean, it could be anybody's, 6th seed right there. The Sixers, like I said, they have probably the easiest chance to get there. The hardest game being against the Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
And I will also say one person that should get his flowers is going to be Council. Council played a phenomenal last couple minutes overtime. Once Reed got fouled out, he played a phenomenal 2 overtimes, got some good points in, played some good defense, got some boards, and, was one of the main factors in clinching that game last night. Obviously, Maxi. I mean, Maxi 50 was it 54, 52, 52. Maxi 52
52.
points career high. I guess that's just if you played the Spurs as the Sixers, you're going to get your career high, I guess. Um, but it's just on the up and up, and you need to get hot at the right time. Right now, that Sixers team is making good strides going into either the play-in or going into that 6th seed.
Yeah. And going back to what you said, Paul Reed didn't have a bad game either. Double double, I think 11 rebounds, 10 points. So he had a pretty good game until he fouled out. It's just these role playing guys knowing what they need to do and needing to get hot at the right time, like you said. And it seems like they're doing it. I don't know if Embiid's resting tonight against the Pistons, but don't. My thing is, don't get complacent. The Pistons, even though they're the worst team in the NBA, they can still beat good teams if they catch them off guard.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I can pull up the standings right here.
Yeah, it's Pacers, Sixers, and Heat are like neck and neck. Pacers are up one game, and I think the Heat are down half a game to the Sixers right now.
Yeah. Let's see here. I mean, I will say though, it's crazy to think about this, but the Sixers have a legitimate shot at somehow getting a top four, top three seed right now. I mean, we already talked about they play the Magic, who are right now the third seed in the East at 16 games back. So the Sixers are only 2.5 games back of the third seed in the Eastern
Yeah,
Conference.
and you
That's
never know. You never know. Maybe the Magic fall off.
Yeah, you can look at a scenario where this is it's wild that between the second to sixth seed, it's only 2.5 games, and
Yeah,
that's how dominant the Boston Celtics have been. They're 15 games up of second place. Everybody else is kind of just middle of the pack there. It's actually kind of crazy. I guess the Cavaliers have been falling off recently. They've lost three.
yeah,
They've won 3 of the last 10 games, and they were at one point the 3 seed. So, and even Milwaukee's not even looking good right now. They're barely limping
yeah.
into the playoffs.
Well, you have a guy like Doc Rivers who I saw recently doesn't like how his team acts during away games. So like you're looking at a team who probably doesn't like Doc Rivers as head coach. They like their old head coach who was doing really well, and then Milwaukee decided, you know what, you're gone, and brought in Doc Rivers, who number one doesn't do well in the playoffs. Had a Sixers team that potentially probably would have won the NBA Finals, and lost to a poor Hawks team.
Yeah, I mean, and not to mention, obviously, like you said last year, blowing a 3-2 series lead to the Celtics. Also, you were up by, I want to say, double digits at one point in Game 6 to close it, and then you choked that one away too. On the
Yeah,
west side is more interesting in the top part of the bracket, no, not bracket, top part of the standings there. You have
yeah.
Minnesota and Denver both tied for first place, and then the OKC Thunder only a game back of that first place spot. And where do you see that? Who do you see grabbing the first overall seed in that conference?
It's hard to say. You looked at the Thunder was the number one seed when they played the Sixers just a couple nights ago, and that's how competitive that Western Conference is. They lost one game and dropped all the way down to I think the fourth seed, um, and then I think they won their last game. I think the Thunder, in my opinion, I just feel like the Thunder's the best team in the West. They got a young team, but a really good team. I think they're gonna make a push in these last few games. I think they'll take over the number one seed, but don't count out obviously the Nuggets. Don't count them out in Jokic, but more importantly, that Timberwolves team. I think they're without Cat now, right? Cat's out for the rest of the season.
Cat was he got injured like a month or two ago, and
Yeah,
he's out for the
yeah,
season.
but they're still playing competitively now. Uh, it really depends when you get into the playoffs. Yes, you have Gobert, uh, who for some reason always gets handed Defensive Player of the Year on a silver platter. But you have him there to be that big man. Obviously, scoring wise, not like Cat, not like Karl Anthony Towns, who is a really good scorer at that big man spot. But they're still a good team. Anthony Edwards playing really well this year, looking really good. I think he could lead that team close to the Western Conference Finals. I don't know if they'll make it, but yeah, I think the Thunder is my favorite.
Yeah, I think the Nuggets will end up getting that one seed at the end, but are the Thunder your favorites coming out of the West? Is that the team you're going to come out of the West there?
So the Thunder is my favorite team. They've just been dominant all year, but like I said, when it comes to playoffs, the most dominant team may not be the number one team. You look at teams like Miami the last few years who have been bottom seeds who still make it to the NBA finals. It's just about getting hot at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I truly think that it will be the Nuggets who pull one out. They have the experience. I would love to see it be the Timberwolves. I mean, the Timberwolves are such a they're a good team and a surprisingly good team. Them and the Thunder, two teams I did not expect to sit there
Yeah,
and just go out and ball out and dominate on a nightly basis. I believe at the beginning of the year when we were talking about the Thunder playing well, I may have said like I don't see it lasting that long. But I mean, they've proven that
yeah,
wrong. I mean, arguably SGA is a MVP candidate, probably top three, maybe even top two. I don't think
yeah.
he'll get it this year. But I mean, he has helped will the team that I think missed the playoffs last year. Were like a 9 or 10 seed, missed the playoffs, may have even missed the play in tournaments at like at 11 or 12. Who knows? And then they turned around. You have a chance at a 1 seed, and that's something. I mean, I think their coach is probably gonna end up winning Coach of the Year. I feel like that's probably the Thunder's coach probably end up winning Coach of the Year this year.
The thing to also remember is the Thunder playing really well now with that talent. They have multiple first round picks as
Yeah,
well. So
was
their future's looking really good. And I think that was from trading away people like Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, people like that. They traded away really good players when they were rebuilding, and they're rebuilding right. Like you said, you look at their roster and you wouldn't expect it. Uh, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, surprisingly MVP candidate. The Lakers missed out with that. Um, but that's like no offense, but that's what happens when you have a guy like LeBron. He's going to get rid of younger players for the people he wants. And unfortunately, SGA didn't make that cut. But fortunately for Oklahoma City, he's proving why he should have gotten a big contract. So I'm I like OKC, and honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing them bring OKC what Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook couldn't. I really would like to see the Thunder bring home a finals if the Sixers don't. That's
Yeah, them. I would also love to see the Timberwolves because I think Minnesota has like the one of the worst title droughts um of any city other than I believe no Cleveland had one with LeBron. So I think like Minnesota has like one of the worst title droughts right now. So it'd be nice to see Minnesota grab one too. I also like Anthony Edwards. Um, so it'd be very interesting to see what they were to do if they were to win. Um,
I just want to point out that my player played for the Timberwolves, and I brought them like 5 championships in a row.
yeah,
So
you and Kevin Love.
yeah, and at one point, Amari Stoudemire,
So I mean, the
Anthony Butler,
battle's gonna be interesting. Who do you think's gonna win MVP this year?
MVP. That's a hard one. Honestly, I think what they might do is I think they might give it to Jokic again. I don't think play level. I think Shy is my candidate. He get my vote, but I think Joker is going to get another MVP.
Yeah, and truthfully, they're probably going to give it to him again. I mean, you have one of the best teams. Who do I think probably should deserve it more? I would say Luca would be my pick for
Yeah,
who should get MVP, but they're probably going to give it to Jokic. He's going to get his third MVP. Um, and it's hard to say sometimes that he shouldn't be because he does do it all. I mean, he is a big man. He scores, he gets boards, he gets assists, and it may not look pretty. He may look really weird doing it, but he's still doing it really well, which is weird for a guy who would prefer to race horses and play basketball most of the time. So I mean, I think Luca deserves it. I think like you said, I think they're going to give it to Jokic anyway.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Um, I honestly like the other thing to remember is the thing with Luca is he is the reason why, like you said, he should be MVP candidate. Luca leads the league in points per game. and he leads it by over 3 points per game. 33.9 is what I saw. So you look at a guy who is scoring lights out and bringing that team. They're not a top seed in the West, but they've consistently made it to the playoffs with Luka every single year.
Mhm.
Um, I honestly, he deserves his flowers. So I like your take. I think Luka does deserve an MVP.
I guess we'll do a little bit of baseball. I know right now things are getting the full swing in baseball, no pun intended. There are some teams who are not playing too well, but there are also some teams who are going above expectations. One team right now, the Los Angeles Angels. You know, they lost Otani. Trout's been playing really well, but they are only a game back. Again, really young season, but they are only a game back of the Texas Rangers, the former reigning champions. They're playing really good
Yeah.
baseball right now. Are there any other teams that you want to point out that you think are playing really well right now?
Um, Obviously the Braves, which
Yeah,
they normally do play well. I'll say a team that's not playing the expectations. Houston, the Astros, I think are 3-7 right now.
yeah,
Uh, they're not playing too well, but then again, it's the thing is with baseball, it's not like the football season, right? Like you're looking at over 100 games left on the season, and thing all it takes is for a team to go on a winning streak, uh, win a couple of series, because that's really all you got to play with baseball. You don't want to play total record. You want to take it a series at a time and win each series, and that's how you get a good team going. That's how you get a good record in baseball. But yeah, Houston not playing well. Philadelphia, middle of the pack, not playing to expectations. But you can blame a lot of that on the bullpen because
yeah.
the bats have been scoring except for Nick Castellanos. But oddly
Rojas.
enough, we yeah, Rojas. But oddly enough, we talk about Nick Castellanos striking out a lot. He doesn't even lead the Phillies in strikeouts. Uh, Trey Turner has the most strikeouts on the team, but he still has a better batting average. So honestly, but with the Phillies, they didn't start off hot last year either. So earlier on the season, all these teams where we're like they're playing bad, they're playing good. There's a lot of season left, but yeah,
And I guess one thing I'll do, we only have like about 5 or 6 minutes left before we do like certified ball, all that kind of stuff. One team who's looked really bad right now has been the Miami Marlins, a team that was a
yeah.
playoff team last year, started off I believe like 0-8. They're 1-9 right now. Um, where do you find their woes there? Like what are they missing right now?
Well, honestly, I think it's the pitching. Um, you look at teams like Los Angeles played the Marlins recently. But Angels are playing really well. I'd have to look up the stats, but you look at Miami last year, one of the big reasons why they were a top team is because their pitching was doing really well. Um, Even with teams like Philadelphia in that playoff run, it was the pitching that helped will Philadelphia, surprisingly, except for the final game in that series. But yeah, they usually hold teams to like 3 runs at the most that I remember. But yeah, I think pitching is the biggest part in the Marlins' downfall.
Yeah, I agree there too. I mean, obviously last year you had guys like Soler and Arias who were hitting the ball really well. I believe Soler went somewhere else this year. I want to say the Red Sox. But I mean,
Sounds
but yeah, I mean, Miami right now 1-9. That's not good. It's not good, especially in a division that is full of, good teams. Like, Mets have a good roster. They're not playing really well, but they're 3-6 now after starting like 0-5, 0-6. Um, but yeah, I guess we can go into. We have 4 minutes left. Just do real quick. We can do our certified deflated baller and hot take. So Dylan, who is your certified baller?
I think obviously Tyrese Maxey is going to be my certified baller. You look at a game like he had last night, and it's hard to not give it to him. 52 points, led that Sixers team, to that win with the help from Oubre. So yeah, I think he's going to be my certified baller.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's a good one there. I'm going to go with the South Carolina women's coach. Not only did she just do an amazing season, you win a title against Caitlin Clark, but then just the class it was to go out there and talk about how good Caitlin Clark was for the game of basketball, like how much she put everybody on the map.
Yeah,
She gave her flowers even after, you know, getting the title
taking
and
the
made sure to give her
flowers.
flowers. Yeah. And so it's really good. I mean, like I said, I'm not sure women's basketball is ever going to be the same with them leaving. You're gonna have to hope that a talent that comes around, but talent like that does not come around often.
Yeah,
So I mean, hopefully, for the game of women's basketball that you do see something like that. I just don't see it happening. Do you have
yeah,
any deflated ballers?
yeah. Anthony Rendon on it. Anthony Rendon. I think he finally got a couple of hits
Mm,
recently, but you look back from then. I think before before that happened, I think they said that the last time he got a hit was back in July of yeah, back in
yeah.
July of last year, which is ridiculous considering how much money Rendon is making. So yeah, the level of place that he's been at is not equivalent to how much he's making.
Yeah, and not even the level of play either. It's just the mentality of it, him not caring, him being verbal
Yeah,
about him not caring. He's like, I'm getting paid. That's all that matters, and that's sucky attitude, And it's unfortunate, but I mean, he got like one or two hits this past week, so he's not 0 for anymore. So good on him. My deflated baller is going to be obvious. Deflated baller going to be Angel Hernandez. That dude, I don't know why he is still pitching, but for the pitcher to disengage from the mound then step back on and throw a pitch, and then the pitch be a good ball or two above the strike zone, and
strike
him
zone.
call
Yeah,
strike three on it is absolutely insane to me. And I just don't know how he keeps playing umping the game of baseball. I don't know how he sat there and say it's racist that they didn't let him do the World Series or the playoffs because he sucks. He went to the court of law, and the court of law said, no, it's fine. You suck. That's why they don't do it. It's not racist.
yeah.
And that's just awful that legally you suck, Angel Hernandez.
Well, the other thing is, it makes you wonder: is he paying attention? Because does he like? Does he zone out? Is he thinking like, man, who am I going to throw out this game?
I want to go
And
home.
then yeah, just the fact that he doesn't see him step off, step back on, and then pitch. Because the second he did that, the batter kind of took him a second and goes, wait a second. And you see him leave the box. And then the pitch comes in. Angel Hernandez is like, oh, yeah, strike three. Got him. And like you said, bad call anyway. It should have been a ball.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just everybody hates Angel Hernandez. He deserves put him in the NCAA. Put him in the NCAA.
Softball.
He's probably going to start seeing like a player hit a home run, clap his hands, and he'd be like, "Nope, showboating, you're gone." But I hate
Yeah.
Angel
We have
Hernandez.
like 15 seconds left. Do you have a hot take?
Um, I think that we're going to see at least 20 home runs. Uh,
I'm not sure what he was going to say, but he did end up leaving in the middle of the recording, and then we won't get him back. I'm going to give you a brief one, like 5 seconds here. But for my hot take of the week, it's going to be tonight's game. It's going to be that UConn is going to have a player who scores 25 points, 10 plus assists, and that person is going to be Tristan Newton. Now, is that a hot take? Maybe, maybe not, but he is averaging 14.9 points per game. That's actually the highest on his team. Edie, may I remind you, Purdue is the highest scorer in the nation, while Newton, who's the highest scorer on UConn, is only at 277 with his 14.9 points per game, which isn't a lot, but the team is one of the best, if not the best in the nation.
Yo, yo,
So
yo, highly
very
taken
balanced team play there.
podcast.
I hope you guys
Please
have a
like,
good rest of the
subscribe,
week. Enjoy the
tell your
games.
friends,
Enjoy your
tell your
week.
mother.
Have a
But
happy Friday when we
I
get
probably told
there.
her for you.
I'll see you in the next
Yo,
one.
listen
See ya.
up, let me introduce to you the highlight taken podcast. We bring the heat is true. Hosted by David, Nick, and Christian. That's a crew. They drop knowledge and hot takes at the sports IQ. We dive into the game from hoops to gridiron, analyzing every play like we was the champion. With witty banter and humor, we keep it fun. HTP fam, we always bring the number one. Highlight taken podcast, we taking over the scene. We drop dubs and chugs, Levin, the sports dream. From hot takes to deep dive, it's a winning regime. Come join the hype, we not just blowing steam.